Drew Brees has fractured ribs and a collapsed lung. Should Jameis Winston or Taysom Hill start at quarterback? What are the implications of Brees' injury? How do we still make money betting on the Saints? Welcome back to aosportspicks TV. I'm Alpha Omega. The biggest news to come out of the NFL in Week 10 as a sports bettor is the news of multiple serious injuries suffered by Drew Brees against the 49ers. The loss of Brees has far-reaching implications for the Saints and the future of their season, as well as the outlook of the NFC South as a whole. But before we go there, let's quickly recap Week 10. The NFL in Week 10 was highlighted by unexpected individual performances. Russell Wilson, who was a strong MVP candidate, made a bunch of head-scratching mental errors that almost single-handedly cost the Seahawks the game for the second week in a row. Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins made the play of the week with the Hail Murray last-second touchdown pass to beat the Bills and go into first place in the NFC West. Carson Wentz continues to prove that he's washed up at 27 years old, allowing the Dave Gettleman-managed New York Giants to thoroughly beat up on him and the Eagles by a 10-point margin. And perhaps most surprising, Lamar Jackson and the Ravens looked absolutely horrible on Sunday Night Football, showing no signs of adjusting their offense after Lamar admitted that opponents were calling out offensive coordinator Greg Roman's plays before the snap. According to Kevin Patra at NFL.com, Jackson told the Rich Eisen show on Wednesday that defenses know what the Ravens are going to do when they line up. They're calling out our plays, stuff like that, Jackson said. They know what we're doing. Sometimes stuff won't go our way if they're beating us to the punch. Eisen pressed Jackson as to whether he can hear defenders call out the Ravens' plays. Yeah, they definitely do, Jackson said, like run and stuff like that. Watch out for this, watch out for that. Sometimes that's what's going on. We will have to see how the Ravens situation plays out moving forward, but let's talk about the injuries to Drew Brees. Lining up for a second down play at the 49ers' 21-yard line, Brees dropped back to pass. Number 95, Kentavious Street, beat Saints guard Cesar Ruiz for a free run at an unsuspecting Brees. Street hit him hard, sacking him at the 29-yard line to apparently force a 3rd and 18 for New Orleans. Now, Street tried to land left of Brees' body. Brees laid on the ground for a few seconds after taking the hit. When he got up, an official dropped a flag to call Street for what I felt was an extremely questionable roughing the passer call. But more importantly, that hit fractured 2 of Brees' ribs on his right side, including one of those ribs piercing his lung, causing a partial lung collapse. From Ed Werder at ESPN. Medical evaluations performed Monday revealed multiple rib fractures on both sides of his chest and a collapsed lung on the right side. The 2 broken ribs on his right side occurred against the 49ers. The 3 fractured ribs on the left side are believed to have occurred in the game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last week. The Saints listed Brees on their injury report last week with a shoulder injury. There's a lot to unpack here, so do your best to forget about all the speculation and start with a clean slate. Now, we just went over the injuries Brees suffered against the 49ers, but let's go back to the 3 fractured ribs Brees suffered the week before against the Buccaneers. Entering the game against the 49ers, Brees' shoulder issues had been made public by the Saints and were present on the injury report. But the 3 fractured ribs were not listed on the injury report. The lack of proper reporting by New Orleans brings into question whether an injury reporting fine will be assessed to the Saints. I personally doubt there will be any fine, but I also believe that the Saints were fully aware of Brees' 3 fractured ribs suffered against the Bucs. Sticking with the same article from Ed Werder. The 3 fractured ribs did not show up as such on the X-ray performed at the time, possibly because of inflammation. The Saints listed Brees on their injury report last week with a shoulder injury, and that was causing enough pain that Brees was apparently unaware of the rib injury he had suffered against the Bucs. There is no way you're going to convince me that the Saints didn't know that their star quarterback had 3 fractured ribs prior to the 49er game. If you're even entertaining the idea that the Saints didn't know, stop it. Now, the Saints are going to use the reasons that I just mentioned, and they're going to skate by without a fine because of it. But they knew. Look closely at the heavier than normal flak jacket that Brees was wearing. That says it all. So what does all this tell us? This is Drew Brees' final season, so he's not worried about saving himself for next year. And the Saints as a team are also equally aware of this fact, and they're willing to play Brees even when he's hurt. Those are the 2 main points to take away from the Saints hiding Brees' prior injuries. And if you're wondering why the quoted media is covering up for the Saints hiding Brees' injury, that's simple. If that journalist wants to continue to be given access to the New Orleans Saints, the cost of that access is to run interference when the Saints decide they want to bend the rules. That's just the way it is. According to Dr. David Chow of Pro Football Doc and Outkick.com, I guess one can argue that the Saints didn't know about the rib fracture before the game, but it is hard for me to think an NFL medical staff wouldn't know about an injury on their starting quarterback. Let's move on to how long Drew Brees is expected to be out of action. While the fractured ribs are going to take the rest of the season to fully heal and will be extremely painful, the collapsed lung is the reason why Brees is going to be out multiple weeks. Going back to Dr. David Chow, there are different degrees of a collapsed lung, and the hope is that Brees's is mild or minimal. There are no reports of him going to the hospital, which bodes better for a return in 3 weeks. As we just saw, the absolute earliest Brees will be able to return, given his injury, is in 3 weeks. Now that is the best case scenario. And after judging how the Saints handled a very similar situation with Drew Brees and Teddy Bridgewater in 2019, the decision on whether to bring Brees back early will rest on how well the Saints' backup quarterbacks play in Brees' absence. Now, the Saints are proving 2 years in a row why it's so important to have a capable backup in the NFL. In New Orleans' case, they have 2 potential starters in Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill. In order to determine how the Saints will handle the quarterback position with Brees out, let's look at the offensive scheme and the stats from 2019. From Mike Triplett at ESPN, Winston appears likely to replace Drew Brees as the New Orleans Saints quarterback. Versatile backup Taysom Hill is also in the mix as a long-term option for the Saints. But in the short term, they will likely turn to Winston because they won't have to revamp their offense to suit Hill's unique skill set. In the 5 games Brees missed last season, Bridgewater took 304 snaps at quarterback and Hill 13. So, given that Jameis is going to be the starter moving forward, the next step is attempting to predict whether Jameis is going to start throwing pick sixes again, like he did for all those years in Tampa Bay, or whether he's finally going to justify his number 1 pick draft status. When trying to figure that out, it's important to look at what's changed from his time in Tampa Bay versus where he's at now in New Orleans. Now, in terms of offensive talent, there isn't much of a change overall. Winston had great receivers in Tampa Bay with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. But the Saints also have excellent receivers in Michael Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders, so that's a wash. Jameis played behind an excellent offensive line in Tampa Bay, and the Saints also have an excellent line, so that's another wash. Now, the Saints do present a massive upgrade at the running back position with all-star Alvin Kamara. Not only does Kamara take pressure off Winston in the running game, But Kamara's biggest strengths are in the passing game. So I expect to see plenty of screens to get Winston comfortable at the beginning of drives. Also, being able to sit behind Drew Brees and really get an education on how a Hall of Famer approaches each game is another upgrade for Winston in 2020. Finally, Winston has also altered his diet and his training regimen to give himself the best chance for success. According to John Sigler at USA Today Sports, Winston's decision to undergo LASIK eye surgery after 5 years in the NFL corrected his long-lasting issues with nearsightedness and an astigmatism. I decided to go vegan. I've been vegan for the past 3 months, 4 months, and it's just changed my body drastically. As for his recent laser eye surgery, Winston noted that the immediate changes have manifested while driving without wearing glasses for the first time in his adult life. I can read license plates. I can read street signs. I think the precision in the vision is the biggest difference. When I read that, I could hardly believe that Winston couldn't read license plates. Now, whether he's being truthful about that or he's trying to make excuses for his 30 interceptions in 2019 is impossible to say. But what we can be sure of is based on his actions with the diet and the eye surgery, Jameis recognizes that whatever he was doing in Tampa Bay was not working. And with 2020 being the end of the line for Drew Brees, this is Winston's best chance to prove himself and secure another starting quarterback job. Just using the eye test, once Brees went down and Winston took over the offense, the weight loss was obvious. I've never seen Jameis Winston look anything like that. So I think we're going to see the best version of Winston in Brees' absence. But whether the best version of Jameis is good enough and whether all the changes we just discussed will prevent the interceptions is difficult to say. From Andrew Bell at SB Nation. In the Saints system, I would expect his turnovers to dwindle down a bit because of the amount of receivers they have that excel in the short to intermediate levels of the passing game, as well as more creative play calling by Coach Sean Payton and the New Orleans offensive coaching staff. A good bit of Winston's interceptions are due to just straight up inaccuracy. You don't necessarily fix that 5 years into a guy's career. PFF has Winston ranked third to last in adjusted completion percentage on dropbacks where there was no pressure on the quarterback. These are somewhat inexcusable. In the NFL, you are simply expected to put the ball on the money when there isn't pressure. Unless the LASIK surgery fundamentally changes his game, I would expect Winston to perform close to the level that was just described. Finally, let's take all of the information we've gathered and look at the schedule to decide how to bet on the Saints while Brees is sidelined. Over the next 4 weeks, New Orleans plays the Falcons twice, the Broncos, and the Eagles. The betting line for the November 22nd game against the Falcons currently has the Saints favored by less than a touchdown. When the betting marketplace overreacts to injuries, that's exactly what we want to take advantage of as sports bettors. As a bettor, if you can gauge the marketplace and make your bets based on the movement of the market, you can literally make a winning bet on every Saints game for the next 4 weeks. If Winston plays well against the Falcons, the betting market may overvalue the Saints against the Broncos, in which case you would fade the Saints against Denver. The opposite could also be true. That's why injuries to important players, particularly quarterbacks, can be such money makers for sharp sports bettors. My betting recommendations are to play on the Saints against the Falcons on November 22nd. Then, based on how Jameis Winston and the Saints offense plays against Atlanta, be ready to fire into the opening lines for Saints Broncos. If you've listened to the information I've given you throughout the video, you now know how to determine the effect that the Drew Brees injury has on the New Orleans Saints. You also know who the starting quarterback will be, and what implications that change has for sports bettors moving forward. Finally, you learned how to take advantage of overreactions in the sports betting marketplace to the news of Brees being out, and how to make money on literally every Saints game by picking the right time to get your money down. Now, I want to know what you think about Drew Brees and the Saints, so let me know in the comments and I'll make sure and respond. Also, consider heading over to my website, aosportspicks.com, and sign up for a sports betting package where you can get my picks each week. Finally, make sure and subscribe to this channel. Hit the like button and click the notification bell so you get notified whenever I release a new video. The more likes we get, the more this channel grows. And the more this channel grows, the more sports bettors we can turn from losers into long-term winners. Once again, I'm Alpha Omega. See you next time.